do a lot better, okay? The reason for that is because when you ask them to do something, it's like saying, okay, versus clean your room right now, okay? So they've got to really listen to not miss that whisper. So what happens is you have a horse who's completely in tune with you. See my horse, her ears are back, she's listening to me, because any second I could say, whoa, okay, and ask her to stop and back up, okay? So, super important, refining your language, okay? The next reason that I want to practice this kind of stuff is to expand my language. Why are we limiting ourselves to just controlling the horse by the bridle? Okay, aside for obvious reasons like, your rein breaks and, you're left with no reins or, something like that. Aside for those reasons, it's going to make the cues, your existing cues on your horse, so much stronger. Because what you can start to do is isolate and separate those cues. You have different cues of asking your horse to stop, which we're going to go over today. Number one, being a vocal cue. Number two, being with your legs. Number three, being with the bridle. Okay, no specific order there. Just 3 separate cues. If you take those and get your horse to respond 100% of the time just to the word, 100% of the time just to your legs, and 100% of the time just to the bridle, what happens is that your horse begins to respond much better when those are put together. And now you have 300% stopping power if you have all 3 of those, okay? That means your horse is stopping a lot better bridleless than many people's horses start with a bridle, because when you take the bridle off, you still have 2 ways of stopping, okay? So it's very effective, and I call that isolating and combining cues, okay? So today, I want to start out with some of these basics and talk about those 3 different ways of stopping, and we'll get into steering if we have time. The main secret is something called trace conditioning. Trace conditioning, in simpler terms, means that you're going to add meaning to a new cue using the old cue to show them the answer. So for her to get there, what you're gonna have to do if you want your horse to get to that point is you're going to bring your legs forward and you're going to start fanning. And I usually start kind of up here by the shoulder to differentiate between asking them to go, and later on I'll move that cue back, okay? But I'm gonna start fanning, and then if my horse doesn't move, I'm gonna kiss, and then I'm gonna start bumping with my legs right there at the shoulder, okay? So the first cue though, remember, doesn't require any pressure. So you're adding energy with your fanning of your legs, then you're using your vocal cue, then you're starting to apply pressure there. What happens is the horse starts responding to the first part of that sequence of cues, to just when you bring your legs forward and maybe open them a little bit, okay? So when you go through that sequence, your horse is going to do one of 2 things, most likely. They're either going to stand there and not move, or they're going to step forward, right? So it's important that you let your horse make that mistake if they go to step forward. I would much rather actually have a horse step forward than just stay standing there, because I want to wait until I see they're really trying before I just give them the answer. Those really good teachers at school, when you would go up and ask them for help on a problem, they'd probably drive you nuts, because you'd go up there asking them to help you with a problem, and you'd leave with like 5 questions that then they asked you, right? Because they're trying to get you to figure it out on your own. They want to make sure you're putting forth enough effort before they just give you the answer, okay? So it's the same thing with horses. We've got to wait until they look like they're really trying to figure it out before we give them the answer. Okay, that's really important, and that, in technical terms, is something called a trace interval, all right? So that's how you would get to the point that this horse is already at, okay? So she said that when she starts to go bridleless, she uses a rope around the neck quite a bit, and she'd like to kind of get away from that. The rope is a great way in the beginning to teach that process of trace conditioning. So basically, you can put a bridleless neck rope around your horse's neck, and when you start pulling back and applying some pressure there, you kind of wait till they start to try to show you the answer, and then you give them the answer with your rein. So I'll usually pick up on my bridleless neck rope, and then I'll show them the answer with the rein. Okay? So what I want you to do then is ride around with your hands here or here. Okay? And try that to help wean yourself off of doing anything with your hands. Okay? So as she kind of practices that, I'm going to talk to you guys about putting steering on them bridleless. Okay? So there's two different ways that I'm going to go about teaching this. First of all, I can start with dressage whips, which I'll show you in a second. I'm going to show you the other way first. So I talked to you guys about my feet, right? So see when my horse wants to go get a little quick, you saw me fanning my legs, asking her to slow down. My feet are also going to communicate when I want this horse to turn, okay? So I'm actually going to start using both legs here. See how I put a lot of bend on this horse? So I'm just laying my left calf on her just a little bit. I'm not even squeezing, I'm just letting it lay on her side right there. And my right foot, see it ever so gently swinging with this horse's body? That's what's keeping her on a circle, okay? If I were to start fanning more, then she would go into a spin and really move her shoulders around, okay? So the speed of the waving with your leg is what determines how tight they're turning. The inside leg is just kind of there asking her to bend, okay? So when I go to put that on, I'll start waving my leg, and I'm not going to even really worry about the bend much at first. I'm just going to wave my outside leg and just give the horse the answer with my reins, okay? It's that simple, and again, it's called trace conditioning is that concept. And if your horse neck reins, then it does become easier, but you can definitely teach it with using an indirect rein, and I've certainly done that quite a bit, okay? System of vocal cues is a little bit different, okay? So in that sequence of cues that I'm talking about, I'm going to use either a cluck or a kiss. A kiss, it means gas, whether I'm going forwards faster or backwards faster. It's saying, okay, you need to speed your feet up, otherwise you're going to feel some pressure coming, okay? A cluck is for any kind of lateral movement. If I want that horse to, for example, steer, move its shoulders, if I want it to move its rib cage or its hip. The reason that it's important to differentiate between those vocal cues is because if I use a kiss for everything before pressure comes, I could be wanting my horse to bring her hip in here, but she may just speed off, right? So it just helps differentiate better, okay? So it becomes really obvious when you cluck that you're not asking them to go faster. You're just asking them to move some kind of body part. Okay, so the way to get your horse softer and turning better without you having to help with your hand at all is going to be by using that sequence of cues and starting out lighter so that you wait longer to get to the pressure. And that kind of goes against our instincts because we know that it's going to take X amount of pressure to get the result we're looking for, so logic tells us to start with X amount of pressure. The problem with that is you're always going to have to use X amount of pressure. You're never going to be able to get to X minus 1 amount of pressure, okay? So I want you to literally, when you're working on using a sequence of cues, like close your eyes and envision how soft you want your horse to be, okay? Maybe if I just look, I want my horse to start turning. So start there and then work your way up to adding pressure, okay? So we're just going to kind of play around and see how I'm using my legs here to turn, okay? If you can start by just putting some energy and some waving into your leg and get him to respond to that. And then if he doesn't steer, I want you to cluck, and then you can add spur and add the rein if you need to, okay? So you'll literally unlock your leg from your knee down, okay? And you're just going to kind of wave it right there. Okay, so go ahead and start waving. Start waving. Okay, and then go ahead and cluck. And then add spur. Spur, spur, spur. Okay, use your rein as you're using your spur to show him the answer. So when you show him and you've advanced using spur and he wants to trot off, keep adding that pressure of your leg and show him the answer with the rein. Okay, go ahead and clutch, then use your spur. Good, release. And when I say release, it means let your legs go back to neutral and let that horse just go forward and go straight, okay? So that's how you can get your horse a lot lighter to turn it. In order to get your horse light, whatever it may be, you've got to start with less pressure. Figure out a way of going about it that you don't have to add it in the end. Because with all of my training, that's why you see so much of the Liberty and Bridleless. I want to get to the point where if I'm asking with my energy, then a verbal warning, and then pressure, that I can completely cut the pressure out, okay? That's how Liberty and Bridleless is possible, because you don't have to use the pressure of a bridle, for example, okay? And when you're riding at Liberty or Bridleless, it becomes really important that you're communicating without pressure, because what's going to happen is your horse is free. They're performing at their own free will, okay? So they have the decision to leave at any time that they want. So if you're constantly using pressure and you're nagging, what are they going to do? They're going to say, hey, see ya, you're not too fun, okay? And they're out. So we've got to figure out a way where we can communicate without it. All right, go ahead and show me again, introducing this cue. So wave your left leg, just wave it there from your knee to your heel, and then clutch, and then add your leg. Good, release. Perfect. See how we brought his shoulder around there? Okay. And I would just work on going to the right here for a few more minutes. Okay, go ahead and start waving. Clutch, then leg. Show him the answer with your spur. Good, and release. So we're going to do this until, see that nice little move, he brought his shoulder around there at the end? We're going to do that until he responds to the first part of that sequence when you just wave your leg, okay? Okay, go ahead. And show him the answer. Show him the answer with your leg, that's okay. Keep going until he really brings that shoulder around. Good, release, perfect, good. Feel how much he really brought it around there? Go ahead and ask again. Wave, clutch. Add leg, add leg. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Keep going, show him the answer as you keep with the leg, and release. Let him go out. Perfect, beautiful, okay? Very important that when you show them the answer with your old cue, how you see her picking up the rein, that you continue adding the new cue, okay? Because you're only using that old cue to bring meaning to the new one. All right, so the only way he's going to get a release of pressure from that leg is when he turns. Okay, we might help him and show him the answer at the rein, but our leg's not going to come off until he gives us that correct answer. Otherwise, he's never going to learn to respond to just the leg. Okay, go ahead and wave again. Clutch. And leg. Leg, more. Good. Okay. And let him go out. Just quiet your legs. Good. Okay, and again, wave your left leg. Good, release. There I thought he brought his shoulder around a lot better. Did you have to use any pressure? Good. Okay, go ahead and stop and let him rest for a second. Now, if you're going around like loping your circles, and this is a little bit later after he really understands that, the correction that I would do, like if I bring my horse down here, and I wanted to turn here to the right, and she weren't to turn, I would increase my leg and ask her to really move that shoulder around and then go back out, okay? To kind of say, hey, I needed you to move your shoulder right there, okay? And so you kind of just overemphasize it. Does that make sense? Okay? So that's the correction that I would make as you fine-tune your steering. Now, even though you do, like reining patterns with him is mostly what you do, I would still break it up and insert visuals, and even if you don't have cones or access to something like that, just like look at different specks on the ground and practice riding to those, because I want to make sure that he's not just following that circle because he's so like, it's just out of memorization. I want to make sure that if you ask him to break that pattern at all, that he's going to be there listening, right? So what I'll do, and this is a great way to practice that steering, is I'm going to pick a point on the ground. And you guys ever play those like video games where you've got to collect the tokens and stuff? That's what I imagine. So I'm going to pick out a token here on the ground. I'm just going to point to it. It's just a little clump of dirt right here. And I'm just going to use my right leg, then my left leg a little bit, right leg a little bit more, okay, and collect that token, okay? And I'm going to relax, and then I'm going to pick another point. I'm going to go over to this clump of dirt, use my right leg there, left leg a little bit, left leg a little bit bigger, okay? Now go ahead and do a pretty small circle right there. See if you can get him to really turn his shoulder out. Fan. Good, and release and go straight. Go straight, good. Okay, did you have to use your spur there? No? Okay, good. Okay, go ahead and relax for a second. You can walk. Okay. So now what I want to do then is let's go back and work on the right side and get the right him responding that way, fanning your leg on the right side. And then you can try that exercise where you're really mixing it up more to make sure he's really turning off your leg. Does that sound good? Alright, so she's just going to start at the walk again. Again, we're using trace conditioning here. We're going to fan our leg, put the knee down, then cluck, and then show him the answer. A little bit more. Good, release. Okay, so when you go to use your spur, make sure you continue using it as you're turning. Were you there? Yeah? Okay. Just make sure you're consistent with that. It's hard to see sometimes when you turn. Okay, go ahead and ask again for him to bring his shoulder on. So start fanning your leg. Good. And release. Did you do that without your spur? Okay, good.